because they've been that whole ethos that they went into the election with, that whole raison d'etre of progressive policies, which, as you have pointed out many times on this show and in the pages of libertynation.com, Joe Biden governed as though he had a mandate for systemic progressive change, and it appears that the voters have rejected that. So what question do they ask themselves, and where do they go from here?
Well, the first thing they should do is to look at history. And it's very instructive. Go back to 1972, when Richard Nixon scored a 49-state landslide over George McGovern, who to that point was the furthest left presidential candidate in history until Kamala Harris came along. So what the party did was very smart. They headed to the center. And in 1976, post-Watergate, Jimmy Carter came along and promised to be truthful, to never lie to you, as he said. And by the way, let's take a bow to Jimmy Carter. He is over 100 years old and still hanging on. But be that as it may, they simply headed to the center. And they nominated someone who could speak to the broad center, the broad middle of the American electorate, which is always where the votes are easiest to tally. It's easiest to attract by appearing to be not so liberal or conservative, but common sense. And that's really what Donald Trump did this time. If you really look at his platform, he spoke to everybody the same way, and he appealed to them with common sense solutions, as opposed to Kamala Harris, who just attacked Trump and said he was basically a fascist. Well, she actually said he is a fascist. That obviously didn't work. But Jimmy Carter came back 4 years later. People were writing the obituary for the Democratic Party after 1972, but things can change very quickly in politics. And along comes Jimmy Carter, and he wins the White House for the Democrats in 1976. And another example was 1988, after Michael Dukakis was a disastrous candidate riding around in an oversized helmet in a tank